Welcome to another edition of Ballin with Roy and Edwin, our post Super Bowl edition. I'm Roy S. Johnson, and this is my son, Edwin. We just wanted to share with you once again a little bit of sports and life, father, son, sports and life. How you doing, Edwin?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. How late you stay up last night?
I stayed up till around 1:30 in the morning.
Okay. Doing a little post Super Bowl digestion.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was a good game. But we'll get into that. Before we talk about the Super Bowl, I just think we should give a special Ballin shout out to Erin Jackson. She is the sister who won the 500-meter speed skating gold medal at the Winter Olympics. She's the first sister to win the first American to win a gold medal in these Olympics, the first sister to win the gold medal, the first American woman to win a gold medal since 1994. Bonnie Blair, that's the year you were born, so that's your whole lifetime.
Yes, exactly.
Since an American woman had won the skating gold in that race. So a big shout out to her. And a lot of people don't know that she slipped during the trials and initially didn't make the team, even though she was the number one ranked skater in the world in that event. But her teammate and friend who made the team gave up her position in order for her to compete, which I think was a great thing. I mean, when you grew up, participating in sports, you don't often hear of the sportsmanship and the sacrifice that people give. And so, Edwin, talk a little bit about sportsmanship and what you learned growing up, and what aspect of sports is important to learn. That is one of the reasons why people encourage their kids to participate in sports.
Well, when it comes to good sportsmanship, it's just a matter of respecting your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
You never want to fear your opponent, but you always want to respect them for just the hard work, for their I guess effort. You want to say effort to compete. So you always want to acknowledge that, no matter how good you are, they are, how superior of an athlete you are. You always just want to acknowledge that. Now, that's something that a lot of athletes do not do. A lot of them can't do it, for whether they're arrogant, whether they're cocky, or you talk about a sore loser or a sore winner. Some people don't like that. Some people do. And again, you have some people that are just confident with themselves as well too, in their ability.
And you even see that among teammates, and that's what's important about this one. This was a teammate who gave up her spot for Jackson because she knew Jackson was better. She knew Jackson had a chance at a gold medal. That you see that jealousy sometimes even among teammates. And so this is a great example of not just sportsmanship, but sacrifice. When you know somebody deserves something, and you see that you giving up something gives them the opportunity to do that. That teammate was in China for those Olympics. She finished 16th, and they hugged when Erin got the gold medal. So it was great to see that sacrifice among teammates too, right?
Yes.
That's great. So also we need to shout out to Shawnee Davis. Now you may not be old enough to remember Shawnee Davis, but he was the first African American to win a gold medal in speed skating when he won the 1,000-meter race in 2006. So shout out to Shawnee Davis as well, and continued luck, and hopefully she can capitalize on this financially to Erin Jackson. So now on to Super Bowl 56. LA Rams 23. Cincinnati Bengals 20. Now, I don't want to brag too much, but I know only one of us picked the Rams to win that Super Bowl. And I'll take that W right now because I know I'm not going to get many of them when it comes to your predictions. But were you surprised that the Bengals were not able to win that game?
I was not surprised at all. First of all, when you just said the score, it was a close game. There wasn't a huge lead throughout the game or towards the end of the game. Now, I just want to ask you a question real quick. Why did you choose? Because you want to brag, and again, like you said, you're not going to have that many chances to brag. But why did you think the Rams were going to win?
Well, as I mentioned in the last episode, I gave a little bit of advantage to being at home, to being able to sleep in your own bed, to being able to do your own rituals and traditions before every game. So there was just a little bit of an edge there. And we both talked about the defenses, and everything is always unpredictable once a game starts, and we'll get into the injuries and how that changed defenses. But I just thought that maybe even with Matthew Stafford having sacrificed, not sacrificed, but just played 12 years in Detroit on bad teams, not really having not having an opportunity to go to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, as you mentioned, is a great young quarterback. A lot of people commented that you said, he's probably the closest thing we have to a Tom Brady, and people will be excited about watching him develop. But maybe that veteran leadership, and we'll talk that last drive, I think it was 76 yards that led to the go-ahead score for the Rams. Maybe that's just something I saw as well. You had a veteran quarterback, you had the home field, and in a close game, those things can matter a little bit.
Well, I will say, yes, Matthew Stafford is the veteran quarterback. And veteran leadership, it matters. Of course, it matters. And again, you've had him, you had Aaron Donald, you had Von Miller, the former Super Bowl MVP. And it's always great to see a defensive player win that award, too. They don't win that too many times. But I would say that Joe Burrow, even in year 2, his influence and leadership has taken over that locker room, too. And has got that whole team, not just the offense, but that defense too, which is why they got to this point. And I think a lot of times we're getting caught with pretty much not just on the field play, which is great, but just the off the field too. When you talk about Joe Cool and just all the swag, everything, that how he's looking right now too. But I liked that offense. I liked that team chemistry. I liked everything that was there. I mean, if you look at it, even Jamar Chase, the one-handed catches that he made, the plays breaking up Jalen Ramsey, the best cornerback in all of football, to be able to score on him too, to get those points. Because again, the Rams got on the board first, which was nothing to panic about. It's early in the game. But, they definitely did do their thing in the first half. I think, to be honest with you, Cincinnati won that first half.
Mm-hmm. Even though I think they were behind at halftime. But before we get too deep into the game, I want to talk about the halftime show. I mean, that's what everybody was talking about. You had Dr. Dre, you had Snoop, you had Mary J, you had 50 hanging upside down. I was feeling for him. I was hoping that they were helping him down off camera, because that could have turned out really bad for 50. And of course, you had Kendrick Lamar. I mean, what is your perspective on the halftime show? A lot of people are saying, looking at it from a vintage standpoint, which for a lot of us, we kind of chuckle and, that they've become vintage. But yeah, a lot of those performers were in their late 40s, some early 50s. From your perspective, what are you, 27 years old? How was that halftime show, and what do those artists mean to you?
That halftime show was legendary. And in some cases, some opinion, arguably the greatest halftime show of all time. There are a whole bunch of halftime shows that people will say are the greatest of all time. People like, some I didn't see, some I was too young to see. That one, though, in my opinion, and to so many other people, was the greatest. That was for the culture of hip-hop. That is just for Black culture. That is for everything going on, everything that's dividing us, whether you want to talk about racial, everything where we're trying to continue to promote just Black culture in this country. Mm-hmm. You're talking, like you said, the age range. You're talking about artists from Kendrick Lamar in their 30s. 50's 46. Mary J. Blige is 51. Eminem is 48. Dr. Dre is 56. So these are 20. I'm 27 years old. 50 in the club, which was the surprise. Let's be clear. That was the surprise that they got us was with 50. Mm-hmm. He hung on that thing just like he did in the video. That came out in 2003. I was young at the time, not really into music or hip hop at the time, but I definitely was hearing that on the radio left and right. So I remember when that song came out too. Right. So for them to, first of all, catch us with that surprise too, that was more, electrifying too at that. But they all are legends. So they impacted my life, even when some of them came around before I was born, around the time when I was really young. I have heard them throughout my life. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too young to know the significance of who they are, what they mean to music, to hip hop, R&B, soul, etc. So for them just to bring them all together. Now, the one thing I will say, they did miss one. If you have Snoop, if you have Dre, you have to have Ice Cube too. Okay. I felt they should have brought him. I think it was wrong for them to leave him out, because it's just the West Coast Brotherhood, the LA Brotherhood, and yes, NWA as well too. So you left them off. That I didn't like that necessarily, but again, you did bring 50 to it to include him too, because again, him and Eminem have worked together. Dr. Dre has produced both of them too on top of that. So again, having all that come together, and again, if you saw Eminem kneel, what he did, you know, that was culture, everything it meant culture-wise, everything that is going on now too, etc. Just Kendrick Lamar's dances, just everything, you know, again, similar to Beyonce's performance a few years ago too. And I reposted these things a lot, just the whole performances on Facebook, because I always want to see the feedback and the different opinions. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. Some people do not like hip hop. Some people do not like rap. Some people, I'm just going to be honest, they do not like Black artists, Black empowerment for all different types of reasons, as we know about that are obvious. And I haven't looked back at those comments yet. I'm going to definitely look at them today. But that was very important to me too, just for we continue to be aware. But other than that, it was a great halftime performance. It was the best that I have ever seen in my years. And again, I have been watching the Super Bowl all of my life, but since I have been watching it,
that's your number one. I get it. I enjoyed it too. I kind of watched it with a smile. You know, I felt like the uncle of everybody on stage, and then I watched them all grow up. I was around when they were at the top of their game, and I see how much they influenced and reshaped American culture and music. But when it comes to the best halftime show, I'm always going to go back to 1993 and Michael Jackson. I mean, the fact that I was in the stadium that day, because that was really the first time that the Super Bowl made an investment in halftime. And, you know, they did it because they wanted to keep people from turning the channel. What was happening was a lot of networks were putting forth counter programming to the Super Bowl, like bikini Super Bowls and all kinds of stuff, and people were turning the channel. So the NFL and the networks decided to invest in the halftime show in order to keep people from turning the channel. And in 1993, there was no bigger star on the planet than Michael Jackson. And it was epic. I mean, if this one was legendary, that was epic. You could not have left that stadium without knowing that you were there at a special time and place. And then no matter what happened in Super Bowls after that, it was always going to be hard to beat that one. So I'll give you the legendary, I'll give you the best ever in your lifetime, but I'm going to go with 1993 and the epic appearance of Michael Jackson at Super Bowl halftime. All right, so let's get to the game. You know, like you said, I think the game started at halftime. The halftime was almost kind of like a setup, right? You know, neither team got a big lead, so it was a game. I mean, it was 13-10 at halftime. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a game. And then the first play of the second half, Burrow goes deep and to T. Higgins for the 75-yard touchdown, but it was clearly a face mask. It was clearly a face mask. Two officials, both on the wrong side of the play. Too bad that play could not have been reviewed. That's not the type of play that could have been reviewed. That could have changed the game in a different way, but I think that was the wake-up call. The game started on that play. What do you think?
Those plays are always going to change a game, though. We have seen it pretty much every single year of the existence of football in the NFL. Now, because they did not call it, it changed that point of the game. That play did change the game. It may not have changed the overall impact between victory and defeat, and to some degree, it still got them their points. It gave them that drive, but you didn't call it. Now, let's be clear. The refs let them play. It was the Super Bowl.
And I thought that was good. I mean, I thought this was a well-officiated game. You know, clearly they missed the play, but you didn't feel like the referees were dominating the game. There were some plays that I thought it looks like the Rams kind of jumped a little bit before the snap, but that was just my eye. But I thought it was a well-officiated game. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just, again, it's the Super Bowl. Believe me, there have been so many plays that have been miscalled that have changed games. Games have been lost because of missed calls. Refs are not going to be able to catch everything. That's understandable. They're human. That right there, should it have been called? Maybe, maybe not, but you let them play. It is the Super Bowl. It's bad enough that the game is less physical right now, and I understand when you're talking about safety, but at the end of the day, football has to still be football. So there's going to be contact. Both guys are battling for position, just like in basketball, you're battling to catch a rebound. Well, it's the same thing. Cornerback, receiver battling for position, jump up, box out, catch the ball. Sometimes you're going to get knocked down, you're going to get knocked over, you're going to get a little push. Look, play man football.
Right?
It's a man's football game.
You just can't grab the face mask and you can't do holding. It was a pretty shady holding call down in the almost near the goal line later in the game. But before I get to that, so the next series, when Stafford gets the ball, he throws an interception. So here's where the game changed again for me. If the Bengals had gone down and scored another touchdown, I think that would have put them up. What would it have been, like 23-13, and put them up by 10. Yeah. That's not a big deficit, but it's a 2-score deficit. The fact that the Rams held them to a field goal to put them up only 20-13 to keep it a 1-score deficit, I think that's when the defenses on both sides just manned up and said, okay, this is going to come down to what you call man football. And I think from then on, the defenses dominated the game, not in a way that made the game boring, but clearly neither team brought a great running game into this battle. And so without a great running game, and you know that the quarterbacks are going to have to throw, it puts the game in their hands. And when you've got a solid defense, like you mentioned, Ramsey, both defensive backfields are strong. There were really no major weaknesses. So it was about strategy. It was about who you're going to double team. When Odell Beckham Jr. went down, it allowed the Bengals to start double teaming Cup. But yeah, I think the defense took over after then, and it became really man football.
Well, you have to remember, I'm going to be honest with you, and just to go back a little bit too, first of all, I give Odell his credit to get that touchdown. First of all, that set a tone to the game. You always want to set a tone from the beginning. His touchdown, just catching it on the corner like that, it set a tone. But when he did go down, I'm going to be honest with you, I really thought it would be over for the Rams. It was a significant loss, maybe not as significant just because of how they still were able to produce offense and still able to have a pass game. I thought, and again, when you talk about Cooper Kupp also on top of that, I just thought it was going to go a little bit left when he did go down. I was wrong. They still had enough offense, and obviously they had even more defense too on top of that. So it was, to me, and again, I love seeing, I'm gonna be honest, I love defense. I love seeing defense. I love seeing run. Again, going in the second half, I think the one thing too that set a spark for the Rams too was when Joe Burrow started to run and Aaron Donald did push him out of bounds. Again, he was still in bounds, so it wasn't anything necessarily dirty.
Oh, I thought that was just football.
That was just football.
Yeah.
But again, linemen protecting their quarterback. But that, and you already know, I just definitely like to see that little tussle, definitely grabbing it. It set something right then and there. And then later on, Aaron Donald had the sack. He had that sack on him. Of course, Von Miller got to Joe Burrow as well too. And that's what they need. That's what they needed to do in order to win that football game. They had to get there too, because again, Aaron Donald, the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, the 8-time Pro Bowl. Von Miller, former Super Bowl MVP, 7-8-time Pro Bowler. These guys needed to step up, and they did that.
No, I agree with you. I thought the second half through the fourth quarter was great football. It gave a showcase to the defensive players. And I don't know about you. I wasn't mad when Cooper Kupp got the MVP, but I would have given it to Aaron Donald. I just think somebody on the defense set the tone. He did. And so for me, he and that Rams defense were the MVPs. Nothing against Kupp, love him, love his journey. But I would have given the MVP to Aaron Donald.
I agree. That's exactly what I thought. Aaron Donald, because especially when you talk about the last two big plays on both sides of the Rams team made, Cooper Kupp's touchdown. Yes, I get it. I understand it. And Cooper Kupp ideally was one of the best receivers in the game. He definitely had more stats, more catches than let's say Odell when he came. So not to take anything away from him as how good of a receiver he is, but Aaron Donald getting in Joe Burrow's face towards the end like that was the play right there. Because again, there may not have been too many spectacular plays like statistics. It might have been a lot of tackles, a lot of QB
not a lot of
hits,
highlights.
A lot of QB hits on him. Right. But the sack, getting in his face, even that hit on him, pushing him out of bounds, I think that was enough to give it to him too, because I think the game really was won on the defense.
All right, before we wrap up that, I love the post game, all the confetti, and a lot of people are talking about Odell Beckham Jr.'s tears. I think that was great. I mean, we as black men are discouraged from showing our emotions. And I know some people on social media were talking about turning it into a meme like the Michael Jordan crying meme.
Yeah.
But I think it was good that Odell Beckham Jr., we don't know his pain, his journey. I'm sure he hated being on the sideline and not being able to support his teammates. But I'm glad he cried. I'm glad he showed tears. I'm glad he showed his sensitivity. I'm glad he showed his emotions, because black men, we're often discouraged from doing that. We got to stay hard. We got to keep it in. So to see the joy and the disappointment, not just from Odell Beckham Jr., but from men on both teams, see him hugging, see him crying, just see him relieved, and then seeing the disappointment on the side of the Bengals. I thought that was good to be able for black men to be able to show their emotions.
Well, first of all, Odell Beckham Jr. has always been an emotional player. It also has been off of immaturity too. As you remember, some things he did with the Giants, a few things in Cleveland. I think he was very discouraged having to be taken out the game, not to be able to play. Now, give him his credit. He had the first touchdown. He still had a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and a big one at that. And again, how he got hurt. This was a leg that was already injured before. So, because if you look at it, he didn't get hit. He was running his route, and it just happened, which is why he didn't catch the football. But I just think, we look, Aaron Donald cried too. We continue to see athletes, especially black athletes, cry from victory. Now, we've seen them cry from defeat also. But Michael Jordan, when he won his first championship, the man cried. We have seen, we could go down a list of black athletes. So it's not anything new, but it is always good to see that too, because those are tears of joy just because of everything you have to go through to finally get to that point, because there are things throughout Odell's career. Some things were on him and some things were just whatever, immaturity, etc., that he had to go through to get to this point. Because again, his first 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, he was ideally one of the top 5 receivers in the game. Again, making that catch, and then just kind of starting to decline at an early age, because Odell's really not that old. Odell, I think, is 28, turning 29 years old. So he's not that old. Right. But with him, it's just everything he's been through. It was, big for him. And again, Aaron Donald, that's the one thing that he was missing, because he has all the other awards there. He has all the other abilities there too. But to have that Super Bowl on top of that, and again, for Von Miller now to have 2 Super Bowls at that, again, as I said, you want to talk about him being top 5 defensive all time, or even the greatest defensive player of all time too. And again, I said that list the last time. At his position, talking about the great Reggie White, and then you talk about another pass rusher and Lawrence Taylor. That's a big list, and it puts him in a whole nother level with that too, just with that Super Bowl victory.
All right, so before we wrap up, both agree the game was good, solid defensive game. The elephant in the room, of course, is the lawsuit that was filed by the former Miami coach, Brian Flores, alleging racism and discrimination when it comes to hiring black coaches. This was clearly Black Up Sunday for the NFL. They had Mary Mary singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. They had Mickey Guyton, the black country western singer, singing the national anthem. They had their halftime show, was probably the blackest ever halftime show, as many people have mentioned. And on the sidelines, they showed the Rams defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, so many times that some folks thought he was the head coach. No, he was just the defensive coordinator. Not just, but he was the defensive coordinator responsible for the game-winning defense. but they were showing him on the sidelines as much as the head coach. So what does the league have to do now that they've gotten past all that? It did what it did. It doesn't hide the fact that still it doesn't look as if African Americans are getting the opportunity to be head coaches in the NFL to the level at which they deserve. What are your thoughts on that as a fan, and what does the NFL need to do now in order to really change that reputation?
The NFL they have to enforce hiring practices and really evaluate the hiring process. Minorities, people of color, black coaches, whoever interviewed, you need to make sure they're getting a fair shot. If they don't get a job, it needs to be because of their resume, because of the qualifications, because of their credentials. Because again, there are multiple black coaches throughout history that have been fired and so forth, that they have had some victory, some have not had a fair shot, some have not had a long time frame. And again, you're talking about being paid to lose games. That's the integrity of the game. You do not play to lose. You play to win. So to be paid to do that, that's not fair. And this is the thing. Go ask some white coaches were they offered the same thing, because if they weren't, you have a problem. And if they were, they need to come up and speak up, because it's bad enough that black coaches are rare in the NFL and in the NBA too. There are more in the NBA, but still not that many. So for you to even put an African-American coach in that position, that is not good. And you can say, it's hard to strip ownership from somebody because they paid that. I understand that. Not to say that it isn't impossible, because you can do it. It's just a process. But that's not good, because most other owners, despite they're not hiring a lot of black coaches, they're not at least doing that though. But we have seen so many black coaches. Again, there's only one left. And again, if you want to include Ron Rivera too, Hispanic, minority, okay, there are two. But other than that, like I said, Mike Tomlin is the only one left. And Brian Flores might get another chance. He's getting these interviews, so he might end up getting another job too. And it might be a little hard, just going through this lawsuit too. Some teams might back out from that too. But he especially his relationship with Belichick too. The man can coach football clearly.
No, there's no question. The NFL can't hide behind Black Up Sunday. It has a problem. It's going to have to fix the problem, or it's going to become a taint on the legacy of Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, and this ownership group. So we will wait and see what happens. So before we wrap up, is it too early to make any predictions about next year's Super Bowl or next year's NFL? I know you want to see the Ravens in there, but what do you see going forward for the NFL next year?
It's too early to make it. It's way too early to make a prediction. I would never do that the day or shortly after a Super Bowl or after any type of championship. What I will say is the AFC is loaded with young quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You have Joe Burrow. You have Patrick Mahomes. You have Lamar Jackson. I'm forgetting names.
That's all right. You the young
one.
one. You're not supposed to forget anything. I'm the one that's supposed
to.
Yeah.
No.
The names.
You have Mac
You
Jones.
said they got young quarterbacks. They've got some offensive minded, some innovative offensive minds running those schemes. And so, you're giving the AFC a shot to come back and win the Super Bowl next year. You got some young quarterbacks. They're not going away. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see Joe Burrow in multiple Super Bowls over his career, certainly as long as he doesn't get hurt. I think this was just the beginning. This was a nice turning point for the NFL in terms of talent, to see some fresh teams in the Super Bowl. But I think there's going to be some teams like Kansas City and others, and maybe even my Dallas Cowboys, that put up a fight and maybe get a chance to get back there next year. So, this was a great wrap to the season. Now we can turn our attention to the NBA, even to the Masters, a lot of other stuff going on. We have great conversations always. Hopefully, we'll continue to share these with the world, conversations on sports and life. Thank you, Edwyn. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk soon. And for the rest of you, until we see you next time, keep balling. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.